Right. Welcome to the second part of the poverty and time use survey lecture. This lecture is, by the way, um, part of the lecture series of gender economics, which is a lecture series that introduces you to the feminist economics to my students. And as a last thing, I should say that the uh, this lecture series is prepared for the Middlesex University or the Cyprus campus. Anyway, last time I have made an introduction to the overall lecture. Now I can start with my first article. And the first article is on the critique of feminization uh, of poverty concept. Uh, so the main idea is gender dimension of poverty is fundamentally different from the traditional way of poverty is understood and studied and dealt. In order to study this dimension of poverty, it is crucial to find its methodology and develop new concepts. Uh, so, as a starting point, well, Kant starts to talk of the feminization of poverty, and the main thing is the definition. And here, the definition is especially crucial because the concept itself, if you think a little bit more deeply, as we have started to talk about in the previous part, is a little bit confusing. Why it is confusing? If I would say the poverty felt by the Hispanic people in the United States, it is easy because you have Hispanic families, you have non-Hispanic families in the United States, and uh, you might say in general the Hispanic families are getting a certain level of income, the non-Hispanic families are getting a certain level of income, and if Hispanic families are getting less income, they might be poorer. In addition to that, I might even talk about the neighborhoods they are living in and maybe some state services they are getting as families. And if in general Hispanic families are living in worse neighborhoods, getting worse services, having worse environmental conditions in the area they are living, they might be poorer. So I can even extend poverty in that sense, in that way. Neither of these definitions are easily applicable to the gender. I mean, the core version and the extended version even is not easy because women and men are usually not living separated but living together in the same families. Hispanic and non-Hispanic people are usually living in different families. Even if we have some mixed families, we can take them even as a separate category. Um, so, how do we differentiate if people are living in the same families, in the same neighborhoods, getting similar services from the state as families, since usually state services, public services, are taken by the whole family, not individuals. Even if individuals take, the whole family might get used to those services. How do we differentiate the living standards, conditions of man and woman who are in the same family? How do we define feminization of the poverty concept and how we can say women are poorer than men? And here, actually, in the right wing, sometimes right wing politicians and journalists sometimes they claim this concept doesn't make sense, especially when most of the homeless people, most of the people in the prison are men, not women. So how do we define feminization of poverty concept then? So here are some definitions that are made in the literature and summarized by Chant. Here, let me make it larger. Well, women experience a higher incidence of poverty than men. Women experience greater depth, severity of poverty than men. That is, more women are likely to suffer extreme poverty. So there is a standard line, but women are happen to be much below than the standard line than men. Basically, this is what it says. This says. Women are prone to suffer more persistence and long-term poverty. Standard poverty. The time period they stay below the line is longer. That's the idea. Sentence. Women's disproportionate burden of poverty is rising relative to men. So there's a trend in this view. Women face more barrier lifting themselves out of poverty. Women, the feminization of poverty is linked with feminization of household headship. So here we are coming to something. The first five are basically taking women as a special group and say they are poorer in general. They are poor in terms of the severity of poverty. They feel that severity more. They are also more poor. The trend of their poverty is also increasing. Uh, and their ability to get out of the poverty is less, I mean, is less compared with men, and they stay longer, poor longer than men. But how do we make that differentiation? Well, maybe that is linked to the head household headship, female household headship. Well, female-headed households are usually, if if you have a male and female married together at the same age, both working, it is assumed that this is a male-headed household. So female-headed households are usually the ones where you don't have male, at least not a working male. But sometimes you might have a male, but that male might be sick or old. Well, child is also the case, but in that case you don't have an adult male in the household. Uh, so woman-headed households are, so last three are spared for this group, female-headed households. Woman-headed households are poorest of the poor. Female household headship transmits poverty to children. So basically, when you have a female-headed household, the poverty of this family is also getting to the children, male and female children. So basically, if you are female-headed households, then the male children are also getting this, being affected by this poverty. So these are the viewpoints, and these viewpoints are explained in more detail in moment. Well, these are quotations basically, um, especially for the female households. Let's read a few. The global economic downturn has passed most heavily to the woman-headed households, which are everywhere in the world poorest of the poor. For Graham, what is clear is that many house countries, women tend to be overrepresented in the ranks of um, old and structural poor female-headed households tend to be among the most vulnerable social groups. Um, go down. Uh, an increasing number of poor households headed or maintained by women, households headed by the females with dependent children experience worst affection of poverty. Female-headed households are the poorest. Well, these are some viewpoints on this. Do we have more? No, we don't have more. Anyway, these are some examples. So, now, uh, how do we measure the well, female-headed households is one way of measuring the uh, feminization of the poverty. And note that basically the concept itself is a very popular concept. Well, but it might also be problematic in different sense. Well, first, it of course, as poverty becomes one of the important economic issues, and it is something that is focused on. Well, mentioning the poverty, the poor economic conditions, poor living standards women are facing can be a good way to focus on the feminization of the poverty, uh, poverty basically. So it became a famous concept, and basically the claims that are set by the concept itself is taken over by also some institutions, and especially lifting poverty of women has become focus of many people. Even in Turkey, there was one popular left-wing party um, which actually had suggested to making cash transfers to the woman in the family, and always woman, not man. Even if man and woman are married, I mean, you make the cash transfer to the man. Because in the families, that is based on the claim that even in the families, usually women are the ones that are actually feeling this problem with lack to the access to the resources. And due to the culture also, women tend to use those resources more efficiently for the whole family, not man. That's one of the claims. And many of the poverty lifting programs have special focuses on the woman, basically. Some of them are just for women. Some of them, even if they are more both for men and women, they might basically have a higher focus, a special focus on women. Like, for example, the microcredits, which is giving credits to the poor segments of the society. Uh, Women are disproportionately getting more credits, and especially the program has uh, women are more like the face of the program. How female entrepreneurs are actually making that use of the money efficiently. Um, so it might be an important and interesting concept, and it might have some certain uses, certainly. But the question also might become, uh, well, how can we define poverty of women? How, uh, and basically the main point is poverty is usually, especially in this economic system concept, as we are looking at a particular group of people, usually isolated from the rest of those people, usually in some cases also without context, building the context with the rest of the economic system, and basically uh, the uh, way the economic conditions of these people are connected to the economic conditions of the other people. We focus on this particular group and their conditions, and the way those the conditions they face make them poor. And this might be actually the deficiency of the poverty concept itself. But especially if we are doing that, we focus on the woman, and we see their conditions are poor. Well, but just being focused on women and the poor economic conditions they face might be very much problematic, because the conditions of the living conditions of the women are much more entangled with the other people. I mean, the man in this case. So the whole division of labor inside of the household, the relative economic conditions of the man inside of the household, if the man and woman are living together, is very much defining factor of the conditions of the woman. Well, if man is the woman is doing are doing all the house work, well, if in the same household man is having a higher living standards and woman is having lower living standards, that might be that fact might tell that the distribution of the resources inside of the household, either that or the distribution of the burden inside of the household, is unequal, or creating this outcome. Well, same type of logic is not necessarily automatically. Well, I personally think it is applicable to the poor, poor families, but basically. But in the end, we might still say, well, the poor families' contribution to the economic system might be poor. That might be the reason they are living in the poor neighborhoods and getting less income. So in a way, their conditions might be more possible. It might be more possible to, I mean, separate their conditions, the conditions that make them poor, from the, let's say, economic conditions of other people in the economic system. But this is not that much possible for the woman, basically. But what about the single mothers or female-headed households? Well, I will talk on them more in the next part, because there is a connection between them and this problem, basically. See you in the next part.